So I thought I'd make a video about a few topics that I haven't made a video in 4 or 5 days or so, but I thought I needed to make this video because there's just so much answers that I'm wanting to know about Mikayla, and which is my real blood sister, and my biological father. And I just started this job. It's been about a week, and I need to save up every penny I have is to have the root canal, which is $4,000. That's what the dentist told me. So I'm hoping to save. I'm pretty upset because the entire time that I'll be working there for several months is entirely just to pay for the dental procedure. I think braces is even cheaper than that. I think braces is like $4,000. So I wanted to make a video because I was thinking many years ago, I think I was about 30, 31 years old. And I think it was one of the last jobs I had before I ended up going homeless. Because I started to go homeless at 30 years old, off and on, until I was able to find a job. And when I mean homeless, I mean sleeping outside. And also when I mean homeless is basically begging to people on Craigslist for a place to live. And anyway, I happened to work for, I think it was like a cell phone company, some kind of cell phone printing company. But I was like a printer. I was like a printer delivery person. And I lived with this lady that looked exactly like Mikayla's mother. Like, she looked like she could have been her sister. Like, biologically, she looked exactly. Who knows if it was her? Maybe she just colored her hair different. When I moved in, I want to say that I remember because I remember being fired from my job. I lost my job when I was working there. And which is unusual because there was a couple of teenagers that lived there. And I remember this lady who had she was a beautiful looking woman, and she was authentic, real female, 100% female. And she said, and she was upstairs on the computer, and I want to say that I remember her saying, or like yelling out like someone's name, and she said Mikayla. And it was some girl that was like 16 years old, and this is what I think I remember her saying. So they're making me pass gas. I remember her because her room was like far next door to me. It was kind of like next door to my room, and I lived in the middle, and the other side was the other kid, and he was like 15 years old, and they were in high school. Which is very weird for me to be allowed to live in somebody else's family home and there's teenagers. I didn't communicate with the kids at all. I rarely even saw them. But I asked her, and I said, "Were you married, or did you have a husband?" He goes, "Yeah, but my husband died of a heart attack." And I'm thinking to myself, because you got to understand that when people are bringing this up, word Mikayla or whatever name that they're bringing up around me, I don't know who Mikayla is. I didn't even know who Mikayla was when I saw Mikayla at the governor's office at Lawrence Community Shelter. It wasn't until about a year after, 2 years after. And I was like 38, I think I was. I think it was like 38 or 39. And and I remember her saying that, but I want to say I remember her saying Mikayla, but I don't know if she was trying to figure out whether I knew or not. And she said that she looked exactly like Mikayla's mother, exactly like her, like the lady that I saw many years ago. And when I was a kid with my biological father, who spoke to my mother in person. And I mean, I don't even know. I don't know if it was even Mikayla that went to our house. I think she could have. Who knows? who knows? I mean, it still puzzles me because I was such a little kid, and I saw my biological father with Mikayla's mother at that time, and they didn't look like they were going to stay in a relationship. I didn't know at the time, but when I looked to see, they didn't look like they were going to be in a relationship very too long. And I already drew pictures and talked about this in my video. But I was thinking, I don't know if this was Mikayla's mother or it looks exactly like her. And I talked about that, she knew about my life. There were more people that knew about her life than I did. It was several people, but I want to say she said the word Mikayla. He goes, and she didn't communicate really much with her. She goes, oh, she just told me, oh yeah, that's my daughter, Mikayla. She's getting her own apartment. And at that time, I was like, she's getting her own apartment. Isn't she like 16 or 17? Yeah, she just wants to move out early. And I remember, and this is like, I'm 31 years old. This is 10 years ago. And I go downstairs and I talk about this, and she had a red-headed daughter. He goes, yeah, that's my daughter, but she wanted to live over there. She says she's living over there on the other house. All the information that she was saying was in extremes amounts of details of Mikayla, my biological father, and Mikayla's mother. I 100% trusted this woman. And I don't think she did anything wrong at all. I think she was doing her own investigation, and I think it was because it had to do with it. She knew, real authentic females know that, especially smart ones, when you get in the public eye and you get all this stuff that's going on, it's very likely you're going to have a lot of bad things that are going to happen to you. You're going to have a lot of enemies, and you're going to have a lot of people that want to put you in a certain type of circumstances in your life that they can't. That affects me, and it treasures the Cooper family, and it's just to harm me because of my biological father. We share the same biological father. Now, I don't know if my biological father's still alive, but she told me, and we went to the grocery store. We went to the grocery store together. He goes, oh, heck, do you want to come to the grocery store with me? Which is weird. And I was like, yeah, I guess sure. And I don't know if I waited in the car or went to the grocery store with her, but we went to the grocery store together. But it was so weird. It was so wild because I got along with her. There's a vibe. There's something that's very special when you talk to a real female. Transgenders, most hateful, disgusting, parasitical, especially against me. But this is a real woman. This is a real woman, authentic woman, born from head to toe, who is a heterosexual. She wasn't a lesbian. Didn't really have very much communication with her. I rarely even saw her in the house. I usually just stayed in my room. I went to the living room and watched TV a couple of times. And I lived there for about a month. And one of the days that I was there, I remember going into the living room and turning on the TV. And this is for real. And she was standing sort of from a far distance, sort of before she went upstairs or like to the kitchen or whatever, and in this big living room, and it's sort of on the doorway, but there's no door, right? It's in the house. And I'm sitting on the couch. She goes, yeah, the girl you saw over there, that red-haired girl, yeah, she's my daughter, but she wanted to live over there. And she said that her daughter has, what is it? Is it Parkinson's? I don't think it was Parkinson's. I can't remember what it was, but it's somewhat of a common, it's not a cancer or anything like that, but it's like, it's some sort of illness that either develops really rarely in young people. And I remember her looking at the TV, and she said, yeah, my daughter decided to live over there. And then she was just like with some paperwork, like kind of going like this. She goes, yeah, my daughter decided to go live over there. And her expression was particularly that like somebody did something bad to her daughter, and I can't help but think it's Mikayla. And I was switching, and she walked away, and I was flipping through the channels, and all of a sudden I see Barack Obama, and it was like, sort of, you know how like when back in the late 80s, whenever there wasn't a good antenna reception, it was all kind of staticky, but kind of flickering a little bit, and you can see it's kind of in black and white. It was doing that, and I thought it was weird because it was an older TV. It was like a late 90s TV, and Barack Obama was giving like a speech or something, and then all of a sudden, as I'm switching through the channels, I tried to change the channel because I don't want to watch anything political, and every time I change the channel, all of a sudden, it just changes, it keeps going to the same channel, and I am watching Barack Obama, and it was one of the most craziest, weirdest, like horror movies that you can imagine. Like, you ever seen like scary movies where like, you know, there's bad spirits or some shit, and you're like flipping through the channel, or like Final Destination or some shit. It was kind of like that, and I just remember thinking that I'm going to be murdered. This whatever is causing, and this person is attached to, is going to eventually have me killed and murdered. And I was just like, I froze. I remember just getting scared, and I was like, what the fuck, who's doing this? Because I knew somebody intentionally was playing some sort of hoax, crazy game with me, because I was switching through the channels, and it kept on going to the same channel. No matter, when I changed the channel, it flickered like it was going to another channel, and it stayed on the same channel. And then I just turned the TV off after like, I don't know, 5 or 6, you know, trying to switch through the channel. And I was like, what the fuck? And I look over, and she wasn't standing there. She had already walked away, and I was by myself. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock. And I looked, I was like, what the fuck? And I didn't say anything. I didn't know what to think. But she told me, and she said that, she goes, oh no, my husband died several years ago. He had a heart attack. And I don't know if she's telling me that my biological father did die. If my biological father is still alive, he would have to be in his late 60s or early 70s right now. He would definitely be in his late 60s to early 70s, because when I saw him, I talked about this at Albertsons, and he came over to my house. He was already he was like 25 years old. He was like 25 years old. He could have been 27, but I'm going to say he was in his early 20s. He was about 25 years old. So I want to say this because maybe my biological father isn't alive anymore. I would be very heartbroken and devastated, because I remember his emotions, I remember what he said, and I remember his attempts to try to connect with me. And I remember him over the phone. And I remember that my father, who raised me, told my mother not to have him contact me, or not just don't let him come over here, and just cut off contact with him, but not in an angry way, but like, and I talked about my father who raised me, and my Hector, which I'm named after his name. He is he made an agreement with my father, like, and I remember that. So I wanted to talk about this because, you know, I don't know if she was trying to tell me that my biological father had, because she went to the grocery store with me, and it was weird. She's doing the same thing that Mikayla's mother did so many years ago, and I heard her say Mikayla and she was like, oh, that's my daughter, she's only 16, but she wants to move out. She doesn't have to, but she just wants to move out. She's going to get her apartment with her boyfriend or something like that. And I was thinking to myself, you know, they probably know a lot about Mikayla, and I don't know, that lady looked exactly like Mikayla's mother. I mean exactly. If it wasn't exactly, it could have been her sister. Would have been her sister, like her biological sister. So I didn't have heavy communications with her at all. It was just kind of high and by kind of deal. And but she was very. I don't want to go into more details about it because I know that the retaliation about what these homosexuals are doing to me. They're watching the videos and they're retaliating to me in every work, bus, grocery store, and anything they can. But I can't help but think that she was preoccupied, like something had bad happened to Mikayla, like someone had targeted her and she knew it. Because she looked very like caring with people, like genuinely caring about a human life. And she's a white woman, and I'm Mexican. And but I remember she was like, "Oh heck, do you want to go to a grocery store with me?" And she said, I'm not sure exactly, but I'm like 80% sure she said this. She said the word Mikayla. And it doesn't sound familiar. Just because Mikayla isn't a common name. And Mikayla isn't necessarily a girl you would name that's, white, I would say. It's maybe, I don't know, but it's definitely not Hispanic. It's, definitely not a common black person thing. I guess it could be a white girl's name, but, I just find that maybe my biological father isn't alive anymore. And because you know how people throw all these sort of suggestion or hints about someone's life just to see how you react, or if you'll say something to see if you do remember, or you do know, or they want to toy with you. Now, I don't, there wasn't any bad negative vibes with this person, but I know that it was because it's like I have to be careful for Mikayla, not me. Like she knows it's somebody or something, and I remember this, and I got fired the same day or like the day after I get fired. She just says, "Hector, you got to leave." He goes, "I don't think it's going to work." He goes, "I'll give you your money in 2 weeks up front, and then I'll we'll wish you well." And then that was it. Went back to her house like after Alaska. I think I was like 34, 35. And I went back to her house and I wanted to ask her, "Do you know anything?" And it was weird because she came out and she said, I go, "Do you know anything about any advice or anything that someone had told you, anything about me before? Because I've been in the public eye and I'm trying to figure things out, and my life, and sort of a lot of the." I didn't want to go into too many details when I talked to her because it usually scares off a lot of people because it's so terrorizing the lifestyle that I live. If my friends and that I grew up with and knew how I lived here in this apartment and how I lived, they would be so fucking terrified. Every single person would have cut me off from any communication, and it wouldn't be because they don't want to help me. It was because they would be scared of retaliation toward their life, and it has nothing to do with me. They know that there's just a lot of bad people out there, and it's just like for someone to do that, like they know if they're doing that to me, what do you think they're going to do to them? If they try to help or they try to say something, they're going to retaliate. Somebody will track them down. Somebody's Googling them, their profiles, to make sure it's severed. Because they did this with my family, did this with several other friends. There's never a healthy work environment that I go to because everyone in my work environment knows all my personal life, every bit of it. But I remember it was like the day before. It was like a day before. I think I got fired, or like a couple of days, and I was laying in bed, asleep, or I think I had a couple beers. Could I have a couple beers? I don't know if it was early in the morning or at night. But I remember after she had told me that her husband had died, I remember my heart, my chest, like somebody was resuscitating me, or like I remember just doing this, like going like that, like in my body, and it like somebody, I don't know, was shooting an electronic device. And it's weird because I've had sort of a semi heart attack before, and I remember it was when I was on chemotherapy, and I was in my apartment, and I had been up for like 4 or 5 days. The drugs they gave me and the chemo, bald, and I remember Julian being in the living room watching TV, and I felt like I had like somebody had grabbed my like a pick or something, or somebody grabbed like a sharp knife and just stabbed me in my chest. And I told my doctor said, yeah, it's probably just because your heart's probably taking a lot of punishment because of the chemotherapy. And then I was perfectly fine. I was walking, I was alert, I was perfectly fucking fine. I don't know, I believe somebody used an electronic device. And I don't know if I remember somebody shooting electronic devices in that house when I was there. And I think someone could have. I think there was, for sure. I do believe, because the electronic devices have been following me every single place I've ever lived at. They've always shown up with the electronic devices. They've installed it usually on my phones or any items I have, because I've been completely stripped of any possessions that I have. So anything I have, somebody else usually shows up with a SWAT team who's putting tracking devices, recording devices, hacking. So they have me on pure lockdown, so I can't run away. So nothing I have, when I throw it away, they follow me at the phone store. They follow me at Walmart. It never stops. I'll buy shoes, they got tracking devices on the fucking shoes. They just got to go to the manufacturer, who builds the shoes, and put a fucking tracking device in the shoe, and then they'll just track me, even if I threw all my electronic away. So they'll find, a belt or a fucking pin. There's so many different ways you can track people, using tracking devices and electronic devices, or the electronic device that they're shooting me with, could be an electronic device they'll put into some type of, deliverance into a phone, and all they have to do is just press the button that they have, because it's like a remote control, and there you go, electrocute you. Okay, electrocute you again, and they just keep doing that. So it's like basically like a remote. They just have a remote control, and they just electrocute me by pressing a button when they feel like it. But she told me, I'm 100% on, she said that her husband had died of a heart attack several years ago. Was she talking about Baba? I can't help but believe, but to think to myself that he had, it's so weird to me, because there's a lot of lies people have said about a lot of topics that are real serious, like just a whole lot of things that are pretty serious. And I don't know if my biological father's still alive, and I don't know, maybe he did pass away already, but I wouldn't doubt that if he's already passed away, they're going to use him, whatever it is that they want. They want to make this a full-blown white Ken Cooper American flag, Sarah Cooper for them, and give them their trophies, glorizing the emotion that they want, and we need to make them that and just demoralize me. That's 100%. That never changes. But is my biological father, did he die? Because I want to go look for him. I'm going to go search for him. I want to meet who this guy was. And they know that if I never get to meet my biological father, because he's already deceased, they know the psychologist, my mother's twin, Julian, they know I'm all going to be pissed. And they all know that it's not going to go well, because, that was his daughter and I'm his son. Even though he gave me up, there was a mutual understanding. But my father, Raymond, who raised me, told my mother, don't let him come over here again. And I remember that, because my father, Raymond, when they were talking, he kept on begging to my biological father, Hector, to let me stay there, that he'll take care of me. Like, he was like, we had the same birthday, and he was like really just kind of sitting on the couch, and just like, he looked like he was just totally begging and hoping that he was going to leave, because my father really wanted me. and I remember that. And so I don't know if he's still alive, to what degree this is, but you know, I find it very difficult to think to myself, you know, what Mikayla's a very beautiful girl. Girls, when they lose their father, it is very painful. There's a special amount of sincerity that goes to a father to a girl, a daughter to her father that dies, because you know everybody knows that how you're raised. You know, daddy's little girl, and you know you tend to get in relationships. Daughters tend to get relationships that sort of reflect a little bit of what their father was like. And Mikayla's white. Her mom's blonde and white. Okay, blue eyes. The fact that you're white, you're gonna have a better life. You guaranteed you're gonna have a better life. If you're that beautiful and your mom's that hot, you're gonna have a better life and a good life. For sure, 100%, you are gonna have a good life. And I do not think that Mikayla would have gone through her life not ever knowing who this guy was, who's my biological father. That even if they separated, which I'm almost positive of this, they separated very shortly after I had seen him. I know they're shooting the walls. I don't know if you just heard that on the camera. They just clicked the walls. It sounds like somebody's throwing a rock against the wall. Mikayla would have been searching for her father, or had some kind of contact with him. Would have had to have some. And my biological father, what I remember him, he would have without a doubt, like any real man, biological, when it's your biological kid, like same blood, it's different. It's not the same as just like, because you know that it's a part of who you are. There's something there that's very deep as well. And he wasn't throwing me away like, you know, the people that are training me to believe they hate him and claiming that they know who he is and what he wanted and all this other shit, because they want me to hate him or they want to dispel him in every way, because, you know, my father who raised me was gay. And they already gave the money to my mom, and you know, and basically I was thrown in the trash can, and I just took care of him. But as far as my biological father goes, there's no way that he would have had a beautiful girl like that, a beautiful daughter like that, and not be worried all the time about his daughter. 100%. Because if he gave me up, and he wanted to make sure, and he talked to my mom, and he talked several times, and he talked to my father who raised me, he cares. He sent my mother money several times. He called on the phone several times. And I know that, and I know this for sure. He would, if someone's like that, he would have cared very deeply for his daughter. He would have. Obviously, her mom would have probably been the bread earner. She would have been the one that's making all the money, but that's probably what saved him. You know, somebody probably felt sorry for him. He has a beautiful daughter and me, and he gave me up, and he has to go work and basically at a job trying to protect and give his daughter money, child support. Never gave my mom child support, but he, if you would have looked at Mikayla when she was a little girl, when I saw her at elementary, without a doubt, there's no way that all guys are always scared or nervous of other guys eventually getting to your daughter, right? Every guy gets worried about that. But there's no way. I know Mikayla is. I know Mikayla. She would have been she wouldn't have ditched her dad. Her personality wouldn't have been like, oh, I don't give a shit about my biological father for whatever reason, because he didn't have a whole lot of money, and obviously he wouldn't have been leaving me there. But I thought it was important for me to talk about because, you know, I dream of meeting my biological father and sitting down with Mikayla, and me, Mikayla, and my biological father, Hector, you know, to talk and get something to eat and talk about what had happened, memories, what this person was like, and then talk to Mikayla about, you know, on her own. Obviously, they have delayed everything that they possibly could to sabotage it, and I know who did it. I know the several people that did it. There are several things that I can't say on camera because I know they're retaliating against me too violently, and they don't want me talking, so I have to basically not say anything about it because I don't know what my circumstances in life over the next year or 10 months is going to be. And I'm very nervous and scared because they retaliate against me everywhere I work, grocery store, in this apartment. But you know, I could, whoever it was that bought my mother that house, did not buy my mother a house just for her kids. They bought Mikayla a house and Diana a house from Michael Jackson. That's what they did. Because if they would have said to Frankie and my mother, if my mother was in a good mental healthy state at that time, Frankie, we want to know, was there anyone else other than Miguel ever raped you? We want to know every single person that ever raped you. And you'd find out before I had said anything. Frankie would have said everything. So if there were professionals, you're spending $1 million, you can't own a house, just taking another child's away from, you know, putting the twins together. You can't do that and spend $1 million and think to yourself, okay, you don't know if Julian's twin got molested. You know, they were separated for a very long time. You don't know if they got molested. But what I do know is that the people that spent that money, they were there to harm me. And they were to take advantage of my biological father. They were there to poison my mother's biological twin, identical twin, or triplets is what she is, I think, to sabotage the situation in order to make sure they would be able to buy out everything. And that's what they did. That's what they wanted to do, because me, Frankie, and Julian have the first to talk for my biological father, because we lived with him. Robert, Sarah, and Michael wanted nothing to do with my father. Growing up, not only they didn't call, but they didn't want anything to do with him. They just they didn't give a shit. They didn't want anything to do with us. And besides my mom hating them and all this other shit, but they weren't a part of our life, nor did there were, so they could say stories about about Raymond Colon when he was younger, but his tragic accident in the last years of his life was around me, Frankie, and Julian, and my mother. So whatever it is, and whoever it is that did this, spent this money, was to take advantage of my father, because no one knows the stories of what they did to me when I was at Cellstar Company. I'm telling you, they were ripping me apart, and they were bringing up Miguel a lot. There was a specific guy, at least one person that I remember by the name of George, and this guy spoke Spanish and English, but he spoke Spanish very fluently, like he was raised growing up Spanish, and very corrective English. But he was like 60. He was like 65 years old. He was like in his early 60s. He's pretty old. He was kind of gumpy looking, kind of nerdy, gumpy looking. And I remember when I was working with him, when I was working in these warehouses and some other places, especially this place, I was always very begging and polite, and always make sure I did the best that I could every single time, because I was so desperate for a job and a promotion. I was so desperate to try to get the hours and get a privilege to stay overtime and make some extra money, because I was so young and I was basically at the vulnerable state of anybody. And I can never express what this guy did. There were so many words that this person said among some other people, other adults, because I was only 18 years old at the time, that I wasn't the son of Raymond Palomo, and that he was just dumping me. He was just like, okay, I already helped you. Okay, bye, goodbye. And that's what they did to me. I'm telling you, it was before anything happened. They were already coming at me, persecuting me, like violating me. And I have no idea anything about any of these people should know about my life. And they literally know everything about my life. And I don't know who hired this guy. This guy was literally sitting with like a journal, and like, you ever see those warehouse, little clips that they have, the silver boxes, and they have all the paperwork? Well, they had one of them, and he was taking notes as we were working. And I remember they were just like analyzing us. And it was a group of us that were working. It didn't look like he was just a supervisor, but he was bringing up very deep, profound topics that were related to my father before he died. And he just was like, he was expelling me because I looked like a lost puppy, and I was like a lost puppy, like looking for a dad or looking for a role model or some shit, and begging for work, because I was stranded. My mother's twin, I think it was her twin. But I say this because this person was so scolding that they were representing my father as I was a thief, taking advantage of him. He was gay, and he was dumping me because they knew I was straight. They knew I was straight. And they brought up Miguel, and they brought up raping Frank. Like, they did these exercises around me, and then this guy would be like, okay, this is what I think you need to do. No, this is what I think you need to do. And I just felt him shoot me in my chest with an electronic device. I just felt this guy isn't alive anymore. But I can never express enough that there 100%, when I was there were other people there that had been, one guy I knew was hired to work there, because he would show up in the break room just to try to start a conversation with me and size me up. And he brought up like, oh my son's in the service. Yeah, he's in the Navy. He goes, yeah. He goes, no, I want my son to go to college. He goes, not my son is going to go die in the military. And he was like looking at me. This guy was like just toying with me. And you don't understand that when you're very nice to someone, and regardless, they just want to persecute you. He's one of our gays, because this guy was gay. And he was like, no, he's gay like us. And, and you don't understand. Nobody believed or said anything. The relationship between me and Raymond Palomo was very much as authentic as it could have been from between father and son. It couldn't have been any more authentic. I believed that he was my biological father. These people knew that he wasn't my biological father. And there was so much chaos and so much bad shit. I was literally had like 2 pairs of pants, like nothing to eat but ramen noodles every single day. I had like $10 in my pocket. It was the worst. I don't know why anybody would have done something like that to a young person. I was 130 pounds, and it was really bad. But I remember it's when I was living at Centerpoint Apartments on Frankfurt Road in Frankfurt and Kelly. But I wanted to say this because I think it's important for me to talk about. Nobody knows how much they were ripping me apart when I was young. I was 18 years old. These people were after my fucking father's money. I don't know who hired them. I don't know who was orchestrating this, but this was very heavily orchestrated. The last time that I saw my father at Taco Bell, I saw my father. He was like, hey, Cele, lléveme a la tienda por unos cigarros. And she goes, oh yeah, sí, Rey, okay, Rey. And this wasn't my biological mother. This was my fucking goddamn mother's twin. 100%. And this is the last time that I saw my father. This is the last time I was at Taco Bell. It was the last time I saw my father who raised me. And I was with Julian. Julian can verify this. And Julian, he was behaving like he was getting insulted by this person. Like, what the fuck do you think you're doing? Because you gotta understand, because I hadn't seen Julian very often, or I hadn't talked to him. So I hadn't really built much of a bonding relationship with him. But I do know that he looked very violated with my mother's, like, stepping over boundaries, like, this is my father. Like, who the hell do you think you are? Like, you're just here to, like, he almost said the words, like, you're just here to steal or here to take what's his. And Julian at the time was like 15 to 14 years old. No, he was like 13, he was like 14. Yeah, he was like 14 years old, because I was like late 18. I was like 19 years old. Late 18. No, I was like 19 years old. I was 19 years old the last time I saw my father, because it was like a year I didn't see my father, and or like 10 months. It was like 10 months I didn't see my father, or something like that. 10 to 12 months. And it was just the circumstances of my life. They like cut me off from him, and they put him in a nursing home that was far away, that I couldn't even get to the place. Whoever decided this, you would just like, it is the psychologist. Whoever hired these people to come after me in my job site, it's 100%. They were covering up this money that they were buying, because they were gooning up and together. And this is all homosexuals. These were not straight men. These were gays. This is the gay community versus me. The gay community protecting my father, and I'm over here. The gay community with my father, that's them, and then they pick out and choose and persecute me. They know, because he's gay and they're gay, and they know the gay lifestyle, so that I'm just there to take advantage of him. But I had nothing in my mind up until I was 35 or in my early 30s that I'd like, wait a minute, I have a different biological father. You know, somebody eventually brings up to me, some way that somebody did. But I thought I'd make a video on this. Whoever spent all these millions of dollars and did all this for my mother, there's no jealousy at all. I think it's a very kind and good thing that they did. Good thing that someone does that. But that's not what their intentions was. Their intentions with that money was to also blend it in and retaliate against me. And to keep me from ever speaking on behalf of my father, Raymond Palomo, and ever speaking and defending him because of the money and the homeowner's relationship with that house and his money. That's why. Because of that, it's because I was straight and I was not gay. It's because they were gay. It was 100%. They're gay, I'm straight, that's their side. They don't want to do anything to help. They take advantage. They know how the gay man thinks and who he is, and they represent him to the fullest. There's nothing in my mind I know anything around this, but that's what the intentions was. And I'm looking back now and I'm thinking, you motherfuckers. I can't even express, like, I know it was a psychologist. I know it was a psychologist that had to have told my mother's identical twin to participate in that. 100%. I don't know what they said. There's not even an idea what they said. And one of the ways that I know this is because when Robert Zarate passed away, and I talked about that this wasn't my mother, it was a biological twin that showed up at the funeral. She didn't say anything to me. And I talked about that she sort of was trying to put the attention all on her when she was at the front of the casket. And there were several people, Selena, there were several people that all of a sudden, everybody was just kind of mourning, and all of a sudden everybody just kind of turns their head and looks over at my mom's biological twin. Like she's trying to put it, because she's sort of like putting a show in front of his casket, like literally in front of his casket. And a couple feet away from his casket. and she's just like moping, like, and I'm like, what the fuck is she? I couldn't figure it out because I was like, look, this person looks different, and this person, like, you should, even if it had been my mother wouldn't behave that way, especially in front of a casket like that, and toward the family. Alicia told me this because Alicia looked and was like, the family looked, and they looked violated. And Alicia told me, he goes, I saw your mother, and he goes, your mother looked at us, and she just behaved like she didn't care, like she expresses her a certain way. And I won't go into too more details about that, but she told me in vocal words, he goes, your mother behaved like she didn't care, like she just, like, I don't give a damn. And she just was kind of behaving kind of nasty. Like, she didn't say nasty, but she said, he goes, I saw your mother, but she just walked by us and like, oh, I don't care. And she could tell because when I saw them look at each other and talking, it was nothing good. It was nothing respect. Nothing. Like, this person looked like, okay, so what are you going to give me next? What do you got? Oh, okay, no, I'm in charge, you see, this is, oh, okay, no, Susanna knows, like, I don't know how they separate identical twins to say, but I believe that I believe the psychologist told some, because as a kid, Robin Zarate was my brother. He died in a car wreck with Edward Rangel, who had a twin. And you're showing up in front of a crowd of people, in front of a 19-year-old kid who's hit by a car at 70 miles an hour and killed, with two other girls watching his lifeless body on a freeway, on a highway, that, you behave like that. And I didn't understand, and this is one of the reasons I didn't want to contact my mother. Because I was like, this is, I didn't know it wasn't my mother, it was our identical twin. Because she behaved very disgusting after his death. Even before, but after. And there's no reason to behave like that because I know my mother. 100%, my mother's a very loving and kind. Like, her genuine emotion is not that of her identical. Disgusting. Like, you know how they talk about evil twin? Like the dark side or evil twin, like the yin yang? That's exactly what it is. It's like the evil twin. And I've heard about stories like this on documentaries where there's evil twins that work together to do evil shit. Real evil, like murders, rob banks, and all kinds of stuff. But, I think it was important because my mother would have never done anything like that. And my mother had already been ran over by a forklift. But I thought it was important for me to talk about because I don't know who the psychologist is. I know, why would you show up to a kid that died, put a show on in front of the casket in front of a lot of people, and then look at Mr. Zarate before he dies, Alicia, and you look at Mary, and let me tell you, when I talked to Mary, he was like, oh, I saw your mother, and they were all like, they didn't like the attitude that she gave them at the funeral. They didn't express like, oh, your mom showed up, she was nice. It wasn't any of that. It was her twin, because I remember looking at her and I was like, she just looked, it was different. Like, I was like, you're not my mom, you're not my, I don't know what the fuck it was. There's no reason for someone to show up at a funeral like that. You don't know who this person is, and you know that you look exactly like my mother, and you're posing as that person in front of his casket and the family. For Alicia to have told me something and Mary, it's not good. Alicia was like an older sister to me. She looks like Mikayla a little bit, very, very closely alike to each other. And Alicia, I very much saw her, and she treated us like family and like a brother, almost kind of like, because when I was younger, I remember like we went to a couple drug houses, or like not a drug house. Many years ago, I went with Alicia, me, and Robert Girardi, in what I referred to as the Freddy Krueger house. And there was a story, because she was involved with this guy named Alex, and he worked for the cartel, and I knew him very well when I was a kid. He was a great guy to us. He was like a great model figure, not model, great older figure, mentor, kind of like cool but older. He was a drug lord, and he was a Mexican guy, and he was dealing with pounds and stuff like that, and there was like some other distance friends got involved with Jesse, and then there was a guy it looked like the Freddy Krueger's house. That's exactly what it looked like. And there was a guy that was living in that house that had he was a real life cartel murderer, real life. This is what Jesse, this is what Robert Girardi, and I remember Alicia, we parked in the house. He was, I don't know if it was Jesse, who it was, I don't remember what it was, because Alicia knew a lot of the inside information. Not like it was bad, like Alicia didn't want anything to do with drugs like that, and that's why she wasn't in a relationship with that guy anymore. It was only when they were young, because he started to get off into drugs, and she didn't want anything to do with that. But still did business with Jesse, and then this guy, like when me and Robert in the back, Alicia looked. She immediately, in her instincts, like sort of mothered me and Robert Girardi, and he goes, Hector, Robert, Hector, I don't want you guys to ever go into this house again. I don't ever want you to go to this. And you could hear in her voice that she was scared, like for real. I've never really heard her talk like that ever, going to any places, Oak Cliff, storytelling. I'd never seen her like, don't ever go to this house. I better not ever see y'all come over to this house, okay? You guys, Robert, Hector. And she said this, and she was like protecting us, because we're very young. We were like 14 years old. And because Jesse was involved with that, there was a guy that lived there that he was a real life murderer. This guy was a hired assassin. This guy what I was told from Jesse is that he was a guy that their cartel was paying. They paid him money, and he killed people. And since he didn't have any papers from Mexico, he didn't have like a green card, he didn't have shit. Like, he was literally living with a couple of other guys, or like this one other guy. But this one guy, he was the murderer. Like, this guy was just being paid to kill people. And he killed murdered like 10 people, and Jesse knew who it was. And I remember they told me about some guy that was in their circle that was their hitman. And this is kind of when shit starts to get really bad. I was like, damn, I don't, I told Richard Murphy, I didn't tell him the details. I said, just don't go over there anymore. I was trying to get the fuck away, because I was like, man, this is fucking crazy. And this Mexican guy, I don't know if he had machete or killed, but I just knew that that house retained the guy that had killed a lot of people. Like, he had murdered. You pay him money and he would murder you. This guy, he was just a murderer. He was an assassin. He assassinated people. And he didn't, he wasn't someone that, particularly to my understanding, I don't think did deal with the drugs. He just did the harm. That's all he did. He didn't know who you were or anything. You gave him money, he'll kill you. And that's what he was. But I remember we didn't get involved. We were very distantly from these. I walked in the house a couple of times, but the guy was never there. I might have seen him once. I did see this guy once or twice, but there was a group of them, but he never told me exactly what this guy looked like. So out of 3 or 4 of them, it was one of them, but I didn't know his description. And this guy was on the run, and he stayed at that house for a few weeks before he took off again. And this guy would just travel everywhere, and he would just kill. Where he had contact with the cartel of Mexico, and it was all related to drugs, and some of it wasn't related to drugs, but he would just murder people. I remember Alicia getting told us not to go because we were very young. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing. We just wanted to smoke some weed and buy some fucking 20 sacks of weed and shit. We didn't really. We heard about this like in the Scarface movies, but I remember that Alicia was very protective, and she had said to us like, I don't want you guys going over there. She would distance them from us, and but there wasn't any communication. They never went to Robert Girardi's house or anything like that. They were involved with Jesse and Mary. And Mary didn't know anything about how hardcore Jesse was, because it's crazy because Jesse was at that shelter. I was told that he was murdered in a bar fight, but he ended up, I saw him at the Lawrence Community Shelter and I froze, and the only way that I knew it was him is because he started impersonating his voice like something else, and he was the only person that could make that impersonation voice. There wasn't anybody, and that's how I knew it was him for sure, unless he had a twin. But I think it's important for me to talk about. So, I knew Alicia very well, much more profoundly than I could talk about, but how often I was over there. I spent the night over there fucking every single weekend. I was eating over there, working out, going to Six Flags. I was very much included in that family, very deeply. Just like, very much like Jack Murphy's family at times, and the Cathy house, but it was different because they were Mexican. And so I thought it was important for me to talk about because she said something to me at the funeral, and she was just like, she looked and it's like, your mother sort of she gave him like a nasty attitude, like and for them to say something to me, it was because they were like why would this person show up at his funeral like that? So I thought it was important. Whoever these I honestly believe that the psychologist told her to show up. Now, whatever actions and attitude she has is entirely she's making that decision. But you don't know who this person is, and I believe someone told. And the psychologist, there's no reason why. If this person showed up on their own, I can't even describe how disrespectful. This is beyond frightening of what this person is doing. To show up like that in front of a 17-year-old, two teenage kids that get killed, and you do that to his father and his sister before he was buried. So, I think it's important for me to talk about. There's no one else more than I know it was a psychologist. Like, however strict and whatever it is, it was them. Whoever spent the money and whoever ordered the psychologist to say, we're going to do this to him, and this is how we're going to get away with it, and this is how we're going to make ourselves look like we did the right thing and good thing, it was them. This was all done to harm me. This was the intent to harm me, keep me from having any power and control, just as my father wanted me to have. And they could steal everything my father had. Because of my father, I only got $6,000 to $7,000. It was I got $14,000 together. Altogether, $7,000 came from Sarah because they said they paid for the funeral because that was the remaining money that my dad had. It was like $12,000. Then Frankie didn't want the money, so it would be $12,000 divided by 2. Me and Julian get $6,000 apiece, and then the house I got like $8,000. So it was like $14,000 I got. So I got $8,000 for the house. Because of that house, if I got $8,000 or it was like $7,500. It was like somewhere to $7,000 to $8,000, right? 6,500, 7,500. It's about $14,000. So 13 to 14,000. That means What happens, because when I spoke to my mother, it wasn't my mother. It was my mom's biological twin. How do you know that it wasn't her that says, here, I'm gonna go get a loan, and or somebody gave her money and said, here, just give him this money. Just give him this money and then shoo him away. And fool him. And that's what they did to me. I know and believe my mom's biological twin is not smart enough and not understanding enough to everything that was going on in that family. She had someone that was saying, I have the money, I can do whatever and take anything I want. This is how we're going to use and abuse and manipulate me. And that's what they did. I know for a fact. I know that for sure. But it made me raise question that it wasn't my mom that I spoke to over the phone. And she says, here's this large check. Here's this $8,000 check for the house. It wasn't my mom. It was my mom's biological twin. That's what I think who it was. And she's literally dealing with my dad's dead money. But whoever owns that house, I think I don't know, maybe my mom still owns the house and just renting it out. If my father never got a divorce, my father believed the entire time, for 5 years, he always talked about how he was happy he divorced my mother. For 5 years, and he wanted to get a divorce from my mother, and it was going to happen. Like a year or two before he committed suicide, because the relationship was really bad. Julian and Frankie would tell you that. And why is it? You know, whatever legal matters and the lawyers that went in, they stole everything. This was just to harm me and get away with what they wanted. Oh, what do you want to say? Oh, we're just protecting you because Hector just wants to take the money and that's a lie. That's a lie. It was just because he was gay and because Miguel raped Frankie, and that's a transgender from Michael Jackson. Because we met Michael Jackson, transgender Diana, and then Miguel. Oh, because that's who really got Michael Jackson. That's who really fucking got the benefits of Michael Jackson, because I didn't, because we have to protect it under wraps. You know, he just gets away with this because the police officers knew, Sarah and Kim knew, but there were multiple people that knew about that not saying anything. But I thought I'd make a video on this. Hopefully you have the time to listen to it. If you don't, well then I hope this helps Mikayla. I hope this helps whoever those psychologists, nobody wants to believe me. I'm telling you, they came at me. They were ripping me apart at my job site. Like, I was just after my dad's money. And I'm not fucking lying. I'm not making this up. They were ripping me apart. And this is 56-year-old gay individuals. These were other individuals that I have to meet their expectations and prove to them. I don't have to prove nothing to you motherfuckers. Just like, who the fuck are you to deal $175,000 to tell me what money and everything? We do this in a conversation with lawyers, and okay, well, I'm agreeing to that, and I understand that's legal matters. There was no conversation in any of this. I didn't sign any documents. So the fact is that I didn't sign any documents when I got that money, just the paycheck, says that I wasn't even Raymond Palomo's son.